Hey, and welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine, where we talk to the founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs behind some of the world's most exciting fast casual restaurant concepts. My name is Sam Oches. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. On today's episode, I'm sharing my conversation with Roz Edison, the co-founder of Marination, an exciting fusion fast casual based in Seattle. Now, I want you to just picture, if you will, a beautiful day in Seattle. I know this is not exactly a very common thing, but just picture a beautiful day in Seattle. You are right there on the water. You see the skyline across the water. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous day. You can see Mount Rainier in the distance, and you are sitting down to a beer, a Spam slider, a Pork Katsu Sandwich, or a Kimchi Quesadilla, and just enjoying life. This is an experience I actually got to have earlier this year when I visited Seattle, and I was sitting at Marination Mackay, one of the 3 fast casual locations that Marination has in Seattle, along with a food truck, and they also have a full-service restaurant called Super 6. And it started at a dinner party back in 2009. Co-founders Roz Edison and Kamala Saxton had this idea at this dinner party to maybe open up their own food truck. It just was really right at the dawn of the food truck movement. Roy Choi had just launched Kogi BBQ in Los Angeles, and suddenly food trucks were all the rage. And Roz and Kamala had this idea maybe they would start their own Hawaiian fusion food truck. And very quickly, in just a few months, they got this thing up and running. I really like this concept. I think this is a really interesting brand that showed the power of the food truck to sort of incubate new and unique menu ideas and then prove that those could go from the food truck into the brick-and-mortar space and eventually scaled into a successful, thriving, fast casual concept. So I sat down with Roz earlier this year. We sat down actually in Super 6, which is their full-service restaurant that they opened, and you'll hear some of that restaurant ambiance going on. It was in the morning, the restaurant wasn't open, but they were getting ready for lunch service, so you'll hear some of that restaurant ambiance going on. I started by asking Roz how she and Kamala first got into the food service world in the first place, and then how that really turned into what we now know as Marination.
I started working in restaurants as a kid, as a busser, dishwasher, always sort of back of house focused, and then paid my way, for college, working in restaurants. And finally decided when I was done, when I was graduating as my senior year, I said, okay, that was great. I'm never going to work in a restaurant again. And that's like the hardest thing ever. So I'm never going to do this again. But it was lovely.
You had to be crazy to open a restaurant, right?
You had to be crazy. I would never have thought to even have opened any business, let alone a restaurant.
Sure.
And even just to go back into the industry actually was the furthest thing from my mind at graduation.
So then you got into education, is that right?
I did.
Okay.
I pursued, I went into the Peace Corps, and my business partner was doing AmeriCorps, and our respective paths were down the road of education, public education, on the East Coast.
Eventually, Marination, the food truck, opens, and that was your entry back into the restaurant space. You swore you would never get into the restaurant industry again or open a business. What changed your mind?
Well, it started with that, granular idea. We'd always been good eaters, and we'd traveled, and I love street food. I love all sorts of interesting kinds of food. And I think my family and my business partner's family as well also had planted the seed of entrepreneurial endeavors. Like, you might want to think about it. My parents were entrepreneurs, and her mom was very ambitious. But it all kind of came together one fateful evening at a dinner party with just perhaps a little bit too much wine.
As so many businesses do, right?
Yeah, it was let's talk about food, let's talk about what's happening on the scene with some friends, to, shouldn't we do this? We've all been there at these parties or these gatherings where you're just talking out an idea.
Sure.
The more we talked about it, the hungrier we got. And then I am the operations person who left the dinner party and ran a ton of spreadsheets and interneted my brains out and came back with a plan and proposed it. Uh-huh. And fast forward from like a February dinner party to June, we opened.
Wow. Okay, yeah. And so you're talking about your business partner, Kamala. So Kamala, was she more the culinary mind? I mean, did you guys bring those kind of different parts of
Definitely.
Okay.
We both cook and tinker in the kitchen, but neither one of us is a chef.
Okay.
But Kamala is a visionary, and we had a very good friend who is a very talented chef, and so she came on board as our founding chef.
Okay.
So.
And what year was this?
This was 2009.
Okay. So Marination is very much a fusion culinary idea on the truck. At that point, was there anybody else doing something like what you guys did?
Absolutely. We were inspired by Kogi in Los Angeles.
Sure, yeah.
They were killing it down there, and that's actually what we were talking about at that dinner party. We were talking about how delicious a Korean taco sounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you have like Hawaiian flavors too. Where did that all come in?
Absolutely. So my business partner, Kamala, is born and raised in Oahu.
Okay.
And when we were thinking about what the culinary theme of our food truck would be, even though we were inspired by Kogi in LA, I did not want to spend the rest of my business life being compared and being the Seattle Kogi.
Right, yeah.
Although in some respects we certainly took strength and inspiration from them. We wanted to be our own thing, and we created Marination, which was and we wanted to lead with the Hawaiian side because we knew that in Seattle people love Hawaii. We love Hawaii, of course, but people either have been to Hawaii or they aspire to be to Hawaii or they were proposed to in Hawaii. Who knows?
Sure, yeah, right.
But good things happened in Hawaii.
That's right, yeah.
Or we're hoping to happen in Hawaii.
Hawaii is good vibes.
Yes,
yeah,
and it's close to
yeah.
us. You know, as a culture and culinarily speaking, people have really good feelings associated with that, and I think that's half of the battle when you're talking about food.
Right. Yeah.
You're trying to connect with people and their emotions and making them feel good. And once you lead with well Hawaii, you're already like, okay, well.
Right. You know, what's interesting about Hawaii is that Hawaii is kind of essentially a brand, right? When you think of like all the states that have their own branding, California, Texas, Hawaii is definitely one of those that you say that word and you sort of know what it communicates. Mm-hmm. How did you incorporate that into the branding of Marination?
More importantly, we incorporated it into the culture of our company. We knew pretty quickly that the motto of our company was going to be everyday aloha, and the flavors are there. Mm-hmm. The Hawaiian flavors are there, but more importantly, the company is run with this sense of hospitality and welcome and good intention. Okay. You know, we like just about everybody are not perfect.
Sure.
But we lead with good intention. We lead with hopefully a friendly way to operate.
Sure. So you have this idea at a party in February, you launch in the summer. Tell me about the process of getting it from idea to hitting the streets.
Well, when you're not a chef and you're not a food truck operator and you're not an entrepreneur, you rely heavily on the goodwill and strengths of others. And we took that story of, or that phrase of it takes a village really came to fruition in our case. We relied very heavily on an army of friends and family and friends of friends and colleagues of friends. They were very generous with their time, their willingness to, of course, everyone wants to be a food guinea pig, so that was the easy part. Yeah. But they truly lent their technical skills, their expertise to us, and we were very grateful, and we continue to be.
Yeah. So you quit your jobs.
Well, Kamala was just finishing up her graduate school program, and I was working part-time, so.
Okay, gotcha. Was that scary? I mean, jumping feet first into entrepreneurship, opening your own business, I mean, did that scare you guys to go into this sort of unknown direction?
It's a great question. We might have been a little too busy and confused to even be scared, but yes, it was a little scary, but at the same time, we knew that it was a little bit of an experiment. At the time, starting a food truck seemed like you have to keep in mind we were doing this in 2009, so the recession was sort of in full force. Right. Every day we were watching kind of what was happening on Wall Street. It wasn't pretty. And we took a chunk of our savings out and said, look, let's just make a go of this. It can't be any worse than what we're seeing. Yeah. And if it doesn't work after a year, we will sell the truck and go back to day jobs and figure it out.
Yeah. So 2009, this is also kind of about the time, I mean, you mentioned Kogi in LA with Chef Roy Choi. This is right about the time everybody starts kind of looking at that and saying, hey, food trucks are kind of sexy right now. So what was the scene like in Seattle in particular for the food trucks?
In 2009, there were under 10 trucks that were of the model that you drive around the city. Okay. There were a number of stationary food trucks mostly Mexican food.
Very similar to Portland, right?
Yeah, no, the Portland cart scene is much more diverse. This was very like just literally the taco truck, the roach coaches
Gotcha.
at the Home Depots. That was really the food truck scene at the time. So
Gotcha.
very, very few. And in fact, I actually think in 2009 there were probably about 5 trucks that roamed around.
Wow. Which is crazy because today I'm sure there are hundreds. I mean,
there are, I believe at a recent meeting, the health department said that there were about 180 to 200
wow.
permits out there,
Wow.
which would include stationary trucks,
Okay.
but they are far outnumbered by the number of mobile trucks out there. And that's just in King County. So the other counties in the surrounding areas absolutely have a burgeoning.
You launched the food truck, you hit the streets. What was the reaction like? I mean, was it immediate, like it had lines out the truck or?
Oh, yes, it was. It was every food truck operator's dream, and it was exactly what you see and hear about in the lore of food truck history.
Yeah.
Where people line up before you get there, where they stay in line, where there's just so much buzz. It was really a fun, exciting time, and we were so very grateful to be a part of the start of the food truck scene here in Seattle.
How long before you decided you wanted to go brick and mortar?
Kamala probably decided way before me and just never told me. We had a location in a very iconic neighborhood of Seattle called Capitol Hill. And we lost that location, and it was a little sad for us. And we had been looking, not actively, but just keeping our eye out for something in that area.
Okay.
And a property came along that would, by most people's brick and mortar standards, not be ideal. It was above a larger shopping complex. It had 0 street visibility, and it was 600 square feet, which included the restroom and a small hallway.
Wow.
So we thought that's huge compared to the truck, and we've already built a business based on finding us, like knowing where we are. Our model is not the one where we just change every single day, but basically every Tuesday we're in the same place, every Wednesday we're in the same place for the truck.
Sure.
So we knew that we had people who could find us.
Gotcha. So the branding was there. You didn't worry about, you had all the pieces in place that essentially this is like a stationary food truck.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Gotcha. What was there any kind of like translation you had to do between truck and brick and mortar? I mean, any kind of tweaks you had to make to the business at that point?
To be honest, not as many as you would think. This store was so small, you thankfully did not have that many options to do different things.
Right.
We replicated the exact nature of the truck. We actually replicated the line, the where everything is. So we designed the interior of the restaurant. The initial look and feel of the restaurant looked and felt like the truck.
Okay. It like protected the vibe of the truck.
Yeah, it protected the vibe of the truck. It allowed us to roll out the systems that we had on the truck to this location. We actually bought the exact same piece of equipment for the salad prep table is exactly the same and so forth. So everything fit. We knew it would fit, and we knew how much would fit.
Uh-huh. Also, you opened multiple trucks, is that right? You have more than just the one truck?
We have a single truck.
Okay. Do you ever want to do another truck? I mean, did you decide that the truck business itself wasn't for you, or?
No. It's just that we got a little distracted opening up some brick and mortars, and obviously the economics and the nature of brick and mortars are very different. But now that we're going into our 10th year, we hope to launch one more truck, but it will be a different style of food. It's actually going to be a Hawaiian dessert truck.
Oh, very interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so of the Marination branding, or totally
Absolutely.
different? Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Why is that something that you guys had in mind?
Because 2 of our brick and mortars do have a dessert program that's pretty incredible. We do shave ice out at one of our locations, which happens to be waterfront. Mm-hmm. Marination Makai. It's a very popular program. We make all of our syrups, and so we use real sugar, and so no high fructose corn syrup, and pineapple is still actually yellow and not blue or something. Right. And so that program has done very well. Plus here in our full service restaurant at Super 6, we have a pastry program that's very popular with our coconut cream pie, lilikoi chiffon pie, malasadas. So lots of good stuff coming out of on the dessert side.
Okay.
Enough to put into a truck and drive around Seattle. And
Well, talking about that, talking about the food truck model, what did you learn about, like, best neighborhoods to go to, how often to change, like, your day parts? Because he's talking about a dessert food truck. Is there a certain kind of time of day you have to target and certain neighborhood you have to target for something like that?
Our expectation for the dessert truck is that because it's actually physically a smaller truck than the other trucks, is that it could tag along to a lot of lunch services and have a small, business that way. But really, it's going to be fun, and it's going to do catering. there are quite a few birthday parties that happen, and just parties where you could show up. And we've catered many events with our first truck, where at the end of the night a dessert truck rolls up. So now they just have one more option amongst their dessert truck options.
That's great. How many brick-and-mortar locations does Marination have now?
We have 4.
4 locations, got it.
Yeah, we have 4 locations.
Did you imagine when you opened the first brick-and-mortar that you would get to 4? I mean, was that always the idea to scale this up?
Once again, I would have to say that I could not see past the truck. I could barely see past the driver's seat of the front of the truck. Thankfully, I have a business partner who is visionary, who is ambitious, who is connected, and she knew better than I did that we would need to diversify what we did, and she also knew that the rest of the food truck community was coming, and they did, and we saw that the number of customers per day just dwindled because one, the buzz had died down, but also they just had many more options. And sort of kind of keep up with the Joneses, we expanded. We also did expand. I've said before that basically Marination has expanded following this strategic opportunism sort of thing. So an opportunity would cross our path and we would evaluate it. And it wasn't always that we were looking. It's just that once an opportunity came across our path, it was important that we took a look at it.
Sure.
And we're lucky because all the things that we have done, the way we've expanded, they're all great neighborhoods. I don't think there's a bad neighborhood. It's just that if you're going after lunch, obviously you really just need corporate customers. It's really hard to put a lunch spot in a residential neighborhood, obviously.
Yeah. Who is your core demographic in terms of who you're serving? Is it all over the map, or do you find you have a sweet spot?
No, the beauty of our customer base is that it's all over the map.
Great.
It really is, because it ranges from a kid who wants a shave ice at the beach, right, to folks downtown who just need a little aloha during their midday break, to senior citizens who maybe they, served in Pearl Harbor. Maybe they ate Spam growing up and they haven't had Spam since they were a kid. And they're like, oh, wow, you guys have Spam sliders. Like I said, we have a lot of tourists, thankfully the press and the maps and things about where to go. We have some strategic locations that have us very centrally located and well located for tourists.
Oh, great.
So,
what about the challenges of operating a restaurant in Seattle? I know that Seattle has some interesting, let's call them barriers for restaurants that you have to sort of jump over. Everybody's sort of talking about, like, for example, the $15 minimum wage happened, I think, first here in Seattle. Do you find that it's challenging in this city, or are there any other things that, make this city unique for operating a business?
Well, the hills make the city operate a little unique when you're operating when you're operating a truck.
Yeah.
I think every large urban city is going to have their challenges.
Yeah.
Our particular challenge is, yes, there is an environment where business and small business in general may not be the most supported by elected officials. But
sure.
I think hopefully that's changing. And the challenges of operating our business, really like everyone else, is labor. It's finding qualified applicants who are just motivated, to be honest. I would actually be very happy with a motivated individual, professional who would show up.
Hello, bar.
Yeah, we can train, we can grow and groom and mentor people into the skill sets that they need for our company.
Yeah.
But it's very challenging.
I know that you've said that culture is a big part of what you guys are doing. Can you sort of describe that Marination culture and how that you impart that to your employees?
The official motto is everyday aloha, but the unofficial motto is just work hard and be nice. And we model it ourselves. We ask our managers, we demand of our managers to do the same, and they do. It's not really you have to demand them. It's a natural thing that they do anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a lot nicer place to be. This industry is hard. It's hard work. It's hard work. It's an honest living of just making tacos every day. And the only way to really kind of get through it all is to do this, to be very consistent and just be very nice, because every day you're asking for the same 2 taco shells. Like, okay, fire more taco shells, please.
Right, yeah. So you and I are right now sitting in a full-service restaurant that you guys opened, Super 6. When did this restaurant open? How did you get the idea to jump into full service?
Each one of our restaurants is very different. Each one of our brick-and-mortars is very different. And, of course, there's the truck. And there were food items and cocktails that we've always wanted to sort of try and serve, but we couldn't do that in a limited service, quick service capacity. The kitchens weren't big enough. The timing's different. The expectation of the person walking in is different. And, we won't be shy. We'll say we love a good cocktail. So having a really large full service bar was attractive to us. Mm-hmm. We also knew we needed a commissary kitchen like so many fast casual restaurants do,
right.
and food trucks, of course, do.
Mm-hmm.
So to find a space that could help pay for that, you kind of needed something in the front of the house that could help pay for the back of the house.
Sure.
So
you and Kamala at this point, I mean, you've run a successful food service business by the time you opened Super Six. But again, I mean, neither of you are chefs.
Correct.
And you were new to the food service space when you opened Marination. Was there a learning curve in opening Super Six as well?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And I think we're still healthily in that curve. Yep.
What are some of those things that you've learned along the way?
Because you have so much more time with a customer, you have many more opportunities, both to delight them and possibly disappoint them. You really have to be on your game for a much longer period of time. When you're working fast casual, you get about, if you're lucky, 30 seconds to a minute with that customer.
Yeah.
And then you hand them out their food, and hopefully you get another 5 seconds to say thank you. And out the door they go. And they might come back tomorrow, so even if you messed up, you might have a chance to get them in the next couple of days if they're a repeat customer. In full service, you really have to take all of those moments and roll them up into 1 hour and a half experience. So it's a very different ballgame.
Do you find that as a good thing? I mean, do you have more time to sort of impart that hospitality
piece?
It's
just totally different.
Yeah. It's
a different world, 100%.
Sure.
It doesn't make for rolling out systems and operations very smoothly. Super Six is always we'll do all of this for Marination, and then we have to do the same thing, but totally differently for Super Six.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
What about your team? I mean, as you have grown your team running this business with 4 brick-and-mortar fast casuals, a truck, and now a full-service restaurant, what does the process look like of building a team that can support all that?
We run pretty lean overall. Our team is super dedicated. They're great, though. They just roll with it. They know that, the Marination side is each of the stores is very autonomous.
Okay.
I mean, we keep an eye on them and we support them and we do other stuff, but the general managers of those stores run their stores, take care of themselves, and we just make sure that they have the support they need to do that. And we're a small family, so definitely we're big enough that we have certain economies, but we're small enough to still be a family. I still process payroll. I still know 80% of the people. At least when I read a name, I know exactly who it is. There's the 20% that just came in that I haven't met them yet, but it's great. We call we do say we are the Marination Ohana being the Hawaiian word for family.
Yeah. Talking about some of those challenges that you've faced along the way, or the learning curve, what are some of the biggest challenges you guys have faced in the course of building this business up? And has there ever been a point where you just thought, I just don't know if this is going to work?
Every now and then, I think a good operator will start to be like, I wonder, because if you get too confident, I think that's when you can be blindsided by something that might come your way. So I personally have a healthy sense of cynicism, like, uh-oh. But one of the big lessons has been you have to recover quickly. Like, you cannot let something that wasn't great and let it stay not great. You really have to look at it and say, well, everything has to be great. You can't let anything slide, whether it's how something is plated, or whether it's a portion size, or whether it's the delivery or an explanation of a food item. Every time the consistency of it all has to be there, right? And so consistency, which everyone will talk about, it really is that thing, because once you establish yourself and you have the great fortune of getting a reputation for something, ideally good,
right,
you better deliver on that every single time with the same smile, the same aloha, and that is a challenge.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, too, because you talk about consistency and, certainly in this industry, known for trade dress and, making sure every restaurant is sort of identical and exactly the same. But,
we are not identical. Every single one of our restaurants
right.
is
So I'm
different.
wondering about how can you keep consistency, but also kind of giving that, extra sort of local flavor to every single restaurant you do?
Well, the consistency will come in the food. So the tacos should be the same from restaurant to restaurant. The vibe should be the same. It should be the same sort of aloha welcome. But the look and feel will be a little different.
Sure.
And then the translation for Super Six is just that every time you come into this restaurant, it should be the same.
Yeah. you guys have been operating this business now 10 years.
Yep, super happy for that.
What has changed? I mean, have you had to evolve or tweak the business too? Because especially as you focus on consistency, I mean, but times change. And, in the last decade, you've seen digital ordering and off-premises and delivery, all these things kind of happen. How challenging is it to tweak the business as you go while maintaining that consistency?
The challenge, to say how challenging, it's just our jobs. That is our job as operators, as owners. Our responsibility to our employees and to our customers is to keep up with the Joneses, is to keep up with the trends and to stay current. We have definitely adopted the third-party deliveries. Especially in the fast casual, but also in the full service model. We are working on more and more digital ordering and menu boards and so forth. There's a certain nostalgic feel of Marination as well, though, that a little of the beach vibe for one of our restaurants that we don't want to get too far away from, but we do want to stay as current as we can.
Okay.
But ultimately, I think that if someone, and we've all been to those restaurants where you walk in and it's like, wow, this place hasn't changed since the 50s or the 60s or the whatever, but it's the same thing that they've been doing there, and that's why you went there and you love that. So as much as we want to stay current, we also, as long as our core food and service remain consistent, we're still doing our jobs.
Yeah. You guys now with the 4 fast casual, 1 full service, 1 truck, what does the growth look like to you? I mean, do you have this in your mind that you want to continue to scale the business up? Do you have anything you're aspiring to?
We do. It's not maybe the same story as some other fast casuals where we're trying to replicate ourselves across the country or across the state or even the region. But like I said, we keep our eyes and ears open. We talk to folks. We're waiting and we're looking for something that really makes sense for us. We'll know it when we see it.
Yeah.
That gut feeling, we follow that sort of gut feeling where someone comes to us and says, hey, and we're approached all the time for things, which is incredibly flattering, but sometimes it's just not a good fit. We also know a little bit of our own capacity, right? Sometimes people come to you and they say, we have this opportunity, and we just realize we actually don't have the capacity to do that. If someone came to me and said, hey, I want to open Marination in Dubai, it might do very well there. At the same time, I don't have the capacity to run a restaurant in Dubai.
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's asked you that already.
Yeah, they might have.
I think every business has been approached by somebody in Dubai.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I was like, how far can I go? If I go to Asia, it's actually not that far. I got to go further.
Well, yeah, I mean, Seattle seems like a pretty big city. I mean, there's probably a lot of opportunity to grow here still, right?
Seattle proper, I feel like we are in the neighborhoods we want to be in.
Gotcha.
If we were to expand, it would most likely be in the greater Seattle area.
Mm-hmm. And have you built, I mean, I imagine you've built this really dedicated, loyal fan base locally that, I mean, will help sustain any kind of growth you do in the area, but might even, I mean, it's probably a pretty transient area. You could probably, that could help you kind of move into other areas as well.
Possibly. The thing that we work on right now, we've been doing this for a couple of years, is we grew quickly. So we're celebrating 10 years, right? And we added 1 restaurant or something, whether including our commissary, and we also have a large catering arm. We added 1 thing almost every year and a half, which was pretty quickly. I mean, maybe not as quick as the people who roll out 5 restaurants in a week.
Sure.
We're not in that category, but for us it felt quick.
Yeah.
But now we've spent the last couple of years actually spending more time on being a better business. And so when you talked about the challenges, and part of our response to that is not to just add a brick and mortar or to just expand our footprint in response to rising costs and shrinking margins. Our response has actually been to be a better tooled machine, to be a better company. And Kamala and I also, as business owners, have the goal of, honestly, a work-life balance and having a company that we can stand behind, that we love, that we know, and that operates like the best of any of the fast casual chains out there or any of the full-service restaurants out there. So ultimately what we're working on are all the things that are behind the scenes that you don't see, you don't know. Hopefully you would feel and you would benefit from as a customer, but you wouldn't know about it. And we're trying, we're small though, so we don't have the economies of scale, so we can't go out and buy a $50,000 system that would make my life easier, but I have to find whatever that equivalent solution would be for a restaurant family of our size.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's a little different take on what some other operators might do.
Sure, yeah, but it's creatively approaching your business with creative solutions.
Yeah.
It's funny you talk about that work-life balance. Have you guys found the secret to what that is? I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, I mean, do you have any work-life balance at all?
We work really hard, but we also play hard.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
We benefit from the fact that we do have a team, a strong team. I think we benefit from the fact that we want them to have some balance as well. We all get those awful calls at 9 p.m. in the middle of like some movie night, but but because we're not adding 5 restaurants a week, we're not on this sort of hamster, wheel of just kind of repeating, rinse, repeat, next time. We are just driving home this consistency factor, trying to grow a better team, trying to build managers, trying to build layers of strength, of leadership within each organization.
Sure, that's good.
Yeah.
Every business owner, I think, has to approach that differently, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
you eventually just build sort of layers on top of your business that help you do that.
And people have other people they answer to, right? Like Kamala and I do not, I know a lot of chains have boards. We don't have a board.
Okay.
Right? So we're really lucky.
Yeah, nobody to answer to, I guess.
Correct.
Except
just
yourselves.
our own voices, all the voices in our own heads. They're plenty.
So Roz, as we wrap up, what do you think you would tell to a young entrepreneur today who is, looking to get into this business? Maybe they're at that party, that they're having a glass of wine and talking about the business they want to open up, food truck or otherwise.
Yep.
What would your advice now be 10 years on to that person?
It would be the same advice I would have told probably anyone who, even 10 years ago. So my advice would be the same thing it was 10 years ago, which is run your numbers and run them conservatively. That's always my go-to, but I am the spreadsheet person in our relationship. The other piece of advice is, especially now, I think people should go work for a restaurant. Like work in the restaurant, on the floor, because if you're the owner, you're sure as heck going to be on the floor. I would start in the dish pit, because if you're not comfortable doing dishes as the owner of your restaurant, then you probably should not be in this industry. If you're not comfortable picking up and cleaning up the bathroom after an unfortunate customer experience, like you need to probably not be in this industry.
That's right.
As much as it is about the food and the operations and everything else, you got to get your hands dirty. And you got to be willing to put in, like, if also you want a job where you're like, oh, I'm just going to run this restaurant empire from a computer, and air conditioning. Forget it. You might earn that down the road. And I do have those days where, yes, my team is in the kitchen and I'm at a computer, but I'm also there as well. And you just have to start there.
Yeah.
Because you certainly can't launch anything without that.
For sure. Great advice. Well, Roz, thank you so much for taking the time
Absolutely,
today.
Sam.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. There you have it. That's my conversation with Roz Edison, the co-founder of Marination. As always, go to qsrmagazine.com to get all the news and insights that you need about the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. Go to qsrmagazine.com/podcast for the entire archive of Fast Forward. Also, please send us your feedback. You can email that to me at sam@qsrmagazine.com or post it there on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Finally, if you want to see a picture of that beautiful scene from Seattle at Marination Mackay, I'll go ahead and post that photo up on our show notes. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.